What else can I lose? Maybe I just need something very different, and I need to start from the beginning with my child. I am going to facilitate this every step of the way. Hi, my name is Rachel, and I have a child who struggles with math retention. Can you relate? I know you can. I feel like I have tried so many things to help in this situation. It has been a journey, let me tell you. Trying to find the balance between teaching the subject matter, but maintaining a happy home, a pleasant place, a harmonious habitation, a place where both student and teacher can be at peace with math. Is this too much to ask? I have shared some of these struggles with you guys in some videos that I've created about math, so I know you guys can understand, and you have all offered some suggestions.
Lots and lots of suggestions.
But there's this one curriculum that kept coming up. And the reason that it was intriguing to me was because when I would ask you, well, what is that curriculum? I've never heard of it. How does it work? It just seemed so different than any other traditional math curriculum. So different that I got my hands on it, and I have a lot to tell you. My name is Rachel, and this will be my 9th year homeschooling. I have a 4th grader, an 8th grader, and an 11th grader. And I have tried a lot of math curriculums through the years, and I've made videos about a lot of them. So regarding this math program, Learn Math Fast, I want to give you a little bit of a backstory to tell you how I got here with this particular child. Let me just start off by saying she does have ADHD. That's one of the things that you guys always say is, oh, does she have a learning disability? Does she have dyscalculia? We've been tested. She has ADHD, so it's definitely a contributing factor to the challenges with math retention in our home. We started out with Singapore math. I've done a video where I talked a little bit about Singapore math and some other math curriculums. I actually really like Singapore math, but just like with any curriculum, every child learns differently. So while I like it as a teacher, it was becoming difficult for my child and me to do this together. So we switched to teaching textbooks. The 4.0, the one that was online, the one where, okay, I need outside help. I've got somebody else teaching her now. And it was totally fun. It had all these cute cartoons. It looked like what ADHD kids enjoy is it's different, it's fun. There's other little things that you can do to help keep their mind engaged. But after 1.5 years with teaching textbooks and a lot of things that's began to happen, which I talked about in that video, I was suspicious about what her grade actually meant. Now it's not like she was getting an A, but I still was I just wanted to know. So I grabbed another placement test for another math curriculum to see what my child knew. And it was like the things that she had not retained through the years was literally where we had left off from Singapore math. I decided, all right, teaching textbooks is not for us. My conclusion on that, whoa, let me just say.
Drama from that video.
In the comments, there are some very passionate people about curriculums.
I love you, I love you, I love you! Wow, that was weird.
I'm just gonna leave it there. But online homeschool video-based curriculums are not for every child. And this child in particular is very distracted by the temptation of being online. Can I get an amen? Who else has a teenager that you're constantly struggling with screens and the online aspect and trying to pull them away? Like seriously, like I told my husband this year with regard to writing papers, I said, I think I need a typewriter.
But nobody believes me. They all think I'm crazy.
So when we left teaching textbooks, I decided to give the Good and the Beautiful math a try because I kept seeing the videos about it. It looked beautiful. To me, remembering back to when I was a student, I think I would have loved the Good and the Beautiful math. It had a lot of really pretty illustrations, a lot of fun different activities every lesson. It just, to me, looked fun. But skeptical about if this was the right way to go, I decided to just download the free. That way, if I decided to jump ship within the year, I wouldn't feel guilty about having spent money on it.
I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious.
So I printed it from the website.
Printed it from the website.
If you guys print digital curriculum, make sure you have Adobe Acrobat Reader to print as an image, because I did not realize until I had printed this that half of the images didn't print.
That's terrible. Yeah, happens every day.
So that was a contributing factor to why I decided to jump ship on The Good and the Beautiful this year. But the main reason why I decided I don't know if this is the one was, again, even though the video lesson was only 10 minutes long and I was trying to have her do it next to my husband who works from home, it was, again, just being on the computer. I mean, she's like the child that I can't give access to at all. That's just how it is right now. And I don't need to be lectured by you all about,
Oh, parental controls.
I get it. It's more than I want to manage, though, and I have the right to say,
You know what? No, we're just not going to do it.
because I don't need one more task on my list to manage in this area. Not only was watching the video too much of a temptation for her to open another window and chat with her friends while our video was going, but it was taking her too long to complete her math lesson. And then the images that didn't print. It was like every other lesson there were missing images. So when I would go to check her work, she would say, oh, well, there was nothing here for me to do. And I tried to be more proactive then about, grabbing my computer and saying, okay, checking the lesson before she took the book to say, oh, are all the images here? Here, I'll give you the computer so you can see what the images are. Oh, just became a big hassle and a big headache. And then the other thing that happened this year is she's a teenager. There is definitely a motivational thing happening here. The lack of focus, the apathy that's happening with school this past year. Homeschooling is hard, Mom. To steal a phrase from Heidi St. John, moment of silence for those moms dealing with a teenager. Okay. And then, of course, the ADHD, which I know many of you, that has resonated with you, because ADHD seems to be just a big thing these days. So when I did the video about why we left teaching textbooks, that video just exploded for me. For my channel, it was pretty viral. And it struck a chord with many people. Either people with similar experiences or people who wanted to die on a hill for the teaching textbook curriculum. Look, if teaching textbooks works for you, I think that's fantastic, and you should stick with what's working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm not here to judge anybody on their curriculum choices. But I did notice something else in the comments. You guys know I really try hard to answer every single comment. And if I don't answer every single comment, I at least try to give you a little heart to know I read it. But you guys, I read every single comment. And from that teaching textbooks video, I had so many people saying I had the same thing with teaching textbooks, and this is the math program that we moved to, and it's worked fantastic for us. I actually started to keep track of the math curriculum that people were suggesting as having worked from similar problems. I thought that could be a fun video someday, like a top 10. What do you think? I don't really want to get into it here, but there were definitely some math curriculums that kept being repeated over and over. And Learn Math Fast was no exception. While it was not the most repeated math curriculum, it was repeated enough by those of you who I interact with quite a bit, so therefore you have some credibility with me understanding the plight of my math struggles. I also think maybe it didn't come up quite as much as some of these others because it's still kind of a little known homeschool secret. It kept getting my attention because of how you all were describing it. One thing you were saying was, it's so different than any other math curriculum. It will help you figure out quickly where the gaps are in retention so that you can fill in those holes before you move on. And then everybody kept saying it's no fluff, it's very black and white. It's how this one mom taught her kids math. And then it was how you were using it. Some were using it to catch up before they might switch over to a good and the beautiful. Some were using it as a supplement. So being frustrated with a teenager, trying to figure out how am I going to motivate this child. It's one of those essential subjects we need even for everyday life. I mean, maybe we don't need calculus, but we need to get to some basic algebra and maybe some basic geometry, right? You can't skip math. Relationship over academics, right? I don't want to keep plowing ahead and making math such a thing that my teenager hates it. I don't want her to leave my house with horrible memories of having a certain thing shoved down her throat.
Because you just have to do it.
There's got to be a balance. I know that she needs to learn how to do hard things. You can't always do things that you want to do. But there's got to be a balance, someplace for her and me to be at peace together. And I was thinking,
What else can I lose?
maybe I just need something very different. And I was thinking, I need to start from the beginning with my child. I am going to facilitate this every step of the way. She seems to do better when I'm sitting there. She seems to focus more. If I step away, even for a few minutes, her mind is somewhere else. So I also needed something that we could be focused on, maybe for a shorter amount of time, but be more productive in that time. So I got my hands on Learn Math Fast. There are 7 books here. Why do I have all 7? Well, I didn't get these just for my daughter. So here's how it works. If you go through all these 7 books, the program says that your child will be ready for the ACT, the SAT, college prep math, right? So this is all you need to know to teach your child everything they need to know about math. 7 books. Can you complete 1 book per year? Well, it all depends on how fast your child can get through each book. So if you have a very gifted child, who knows? I'm going to get more into how you can modify this whole curriculum and get through it faster, but let me explain how it works first. So the first book is addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, all in 1 book. That's it. That's not very thick. When you think about like a 1st grade math book, a 2nd grade math book, they might be the same thickness and they're only doing addition. So when they say this is really no fluff, this is no fluff. It's learn it and move on. And yes, there is quizzes to make sure that you're retaining this. So I forgot to mention this. One of the things when my daughter was struggling that I was thinking about was when I switched from Singapore math. Singapore is a mastery approach. And when she started, it started to get difficult for her around long division. And of course, we knew she had ADHD at that point. I started second guessing the approach that we were using, thinking she needs more spiral, she needs more review. But then when we did teaching textbooks, that's spiral. Then we did The Good and the Beautiful, that's spiral. And she was still having trouble retaining. So it got me thinking, and some of you also mentioned in the comments of that video, is it the approach? Should you try mastery? And so this is mastery, so we're going to go back to try mastery, which means you learn the concept and you drill the concept. Then you go to the next concept and you learn it. Like you master the concept before you move on, and then you don't review until maybe you've mastered 1 or 2 concepts, and then kind of like a unit review or a unit test you might do. You're not necessarily practicing old concepts as frequently as with a spiral curriculum. So I hope that makes sense. So this is mastery. add, subtract, multiply, and divide. The second book is fractions, decimals, and percentages. Fractions, decimals, and percentages. Small book, but I mean, talk about mastery. Like, this is all you're doing in here. Fractions, decimals, percentages. And do you think that they won't be adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing? Yes, they will. But they're going to be, this is like one big concept. Like, I understand this. I don't know if I'm explaining it very well. The third book, we're already into pre-algebra by the third book. Is this mind-blowing? So 2 books in most schools and curriculums, 2 books is like your entire elementary math curriculum. Because pre-algebra, at least I remember when I was in school, that might be junior high. So by the 3rd book, you're junior high. Then 4th book, you have basic geometry. So we're not even touching geometry until you understand fractions and percentages, pre-algebra and all that. You know, this is one of those things that I remember when my son was doing Singapore, he would get so confused by this geometry. And, you know, then we're moving on to new concepts and maybe we're not touching geometry for a while. But this is like you don't touch it at all until you have all those other concepts down. Then we've got Algebra 1, then applications of algebra, which I think is like Algebra 2 in high school. And then the last book is high school geometry. Okay, so let me just say, if you decide to try this, I have a discount code, so stay tuned to the end where you could get 10% off at checkout. But also, if you get this, I highly recommend do not skip over the very front of the book where they explain how to use the program. In fact, maybe read it a couple times and listen to me, because I did read it and yet I didn't at first follow exactly what they suggested. So do it the way that they suggest. But here's how it works. So any child who can count to 100 and has a basic understanding of the base 10 system can start with this program. It's not just multiplying and dividing. There are also units of measurement in this first book. But there are 49 lessons. So even if you only do 1 lesson a week, you could potentially get through this in a year. And some students who might get it faster might be able to do more than 1 lesson in a week, right? So you really can learn math fast. Here's how it works. Mom reads the lesson. Older students, they might be able to go through this on their own if you want. I decided, like I told you guys, I am going to go through this with my daughter. When we said basic, no fluff, black and white, it's absolutely what it is. And you can see pennies are used as the manipulative. Everybody has pennies, right? So mom goes through the lesson, follows the instructions, the kids do the drill. Then you have a worksheet if you think that they need some practice, or if you think that they got it, they understand it, you could go straight to the timed test. The goal of the timed test, and this is where I struggled a little bit, because I want speed, right? I don't want my kids, by the time they're doing high school level math, to be taking 2 or 3 hours because they're not quick with the facts. But some kids do get a little bit of anxiety when it comes to the timer. So you'll have to determine that for your particular child. But like this is, let's see, it's giving you 30 seconds for 20 problems. So about a second a problem for them to figure this out. And then if they pass the test without counting on their fingers, without writing question marks, or without missing too many of them, then you can move on to the next lesson. It doesn't really say whether or not they should get 100% to move on. I think my thinking would be if they missed 1, then maybe I would move on. If they missed 2, there's no harm in just doing a practice worksheet and doing it again the next day. So there isn't necessarily a timed test with every single lesson, but there is a review test. The first review in here is after level 7, and the second review test is after lesson 18. So that's where the mastery meets the spiral approach. In those review tests, it is going to go backwards to review those concepts. And if they bomb, I guess you just go back to the things where they need more work. But again, this is no fluff, you guys. This is 3 years of math in one book. This is like all of your elementary math wrapped up in one book. Okay, maybe 2 books, because this one is fractions and decimals and percentages. But here's all of your elementary math right here. And you could potentially get through it in 2 years or less. So in our short experience with this, because I don't think I really pulled the trigger on trying this until April. So we only had a month and a half left of school to kind of try this. So I don't like have a strong,
Oh, this definitely worked.
but we're going to stick with it through this next year because I can see the value in going through this and making sure everything is in place before moving on. And not only that, but my 3rd grader is loving reviewing all of this with her sister. Here's our short experience though with the time test. So I said that I didn't exactly follow the way that the book had said. I had it in my mind that they had to pass the time test with the timer before moving on. And this was a struggle. Even my 8th grader was not getting through all the 20 problems in the allotted time. You know, there's always in the back of my mind, is this a real struggle or is this the motivational issue? Is it that she doesn't want to do harder math? She wants the easy route? I mean, I feel like I have to, right, Mom? I mean, we gotta assess whether or not this is an attitude issue or if it's a legit academic struggle. Story time now. One day, we were struggling with the attitudes, and she took the time test, and I kid you not, she finished 4 of the problems
4.
in the 30 seconds given. 4 problems, adding my 13-year-old. I was actually a little stunned that she tried to tell me,
That's really all I could do.
because previous to that, she had gotten much more accomplished within the allotted time. But it was one of those days she swore up and down.
That's all I could do in the 30 seconds.
And so here's how I dealt with that.
Okay. Clearly you need extra math help. So here's what we're gonna do.
And I went to one of the websites where you can get free math worksheets. It might have been Math Worksheets Fun, but there's several of them out there where you could download, you know, just 100 addition problems. And I printed off 5 sheets of 100. And I said,
Since you need so much help with math, I think we need to pause on the time test right now. And we're just gonna have you do all of this practice every single day. And until you pass the time test, we're just gonna do 500 addition problems every day.
so I was trying to incentivize her to really give it an effort. Not only did she finish all 5 sheets, all 500 problems that night, because, well, you have to finish your homework before you could play the video games. She did the 500 problems, and wouldn't you know it, the next day she passed that time test. It was a miracle. Praise the Lord, it was a miracle. Those 500 problems was all she needed. So she knew I wasn't gonna play. I wasn't playing this game, and she better give an effort or she's just gonna get extra homework.
Would I rather be feared or loved? Easy, both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me.
So there's a little tip for you in case you're suspicious of the same thing. You can maybe try that out. But I reached out to the owner of the company. She's always willing to help with any problems you're having here. And so I told her that particular issue, and she reminded me, drop the timer. It's more important that they get the answers correct. So I think going forward, I might do a timer just so that they can kind of race themselves, but it's going to be more about whether or not I thought they did a legit effort versus a struggle if we're going to move on. So you guys know I've done several videos on math drills we do. I incorporate math speed drills in other ways throughout our homeschool year anyway, so it's not like I'm not going to keep working on the speed. As far as doing this with my younger child, right now we're going through lesson by lesson together. My younger child is actually fairly gifted at math. It clicks with her. So she might be able to keep up with my 8th grader as we go through this. And you know what? If it so happens where she's struggling more and my 8th grader is able to move on, that's fine. Because this math program is not taking that long for us to do every day, and then they'll have their worksheet to practice. The website too, when you become a customer, they do give you access to additional worksheets. So if you have to repeat a lesson, so for example, here's some long division, some basic long division here. If they have to repeat this and you don't necessarily want to do the same worksheet again the next day, you can download additional from their website, or like I said, you could go to one of those websites with free math worksheets if you needed to. But I also think if I alternate this worksheet and maybe another one from the website and then come back to this worksheet, that's not that big of a deal that it's the same. And I've been making copies of these so that I can hand the worksheets to my daughters. So this got me thinking about my high schooler. He just finished Algebra 2 with Shorman Math. So he's got a high school credit for Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. But I did notice this past year with Algebra 2 and Shorman Math that his grade kind of started to decline. Well, then he took the ACT this summer. This isn't typically when high schoolers take the ACT, but I wanted him to take it so that I kind of knew where he was at. I didn't expect him, to get a 30s on his score or anything. I just wanted to see okay, where is he doing okay and where do we need to focus this next year? Because if he goes to college, ACT score, it's a pretty big thing around here where we live. So he took the ACT and we determined, all right, math, we need to continue to focus on math this next year. And rather than moving on to a new math, because technically he has 3 credits, that's all he needs to get into any college. He doesn't technically need to take higher level math, but I would like him to go back and review and figure out how we can increase the math scores, because on the ACT, he's learned all the math that's going to be on the ACT. I don't think ACT gets into calculus and all that. Shorman is a 2-year subscription, so technically he could do it another year. I was going to contact Shorman and say, will you just erase all his grades from second semester and he's going to redo his second semester. But then I showed my son this Learn Math Fast curriculum, and I explained to him how it can be used for high schoolers. And I said, do you want to do Shorman Math again, or do you want to learn math fast this way? And he said he wanted to do this. I am not sure which book we're going to start with, because I will say again, in the beginning of the book, it tells you about the fast track, where you could potentially do all 7 of these books in a year and fast track it. I was thinking, okay, do I really want to do that with my high schooler? He knows how to add and subtract and multiply. So does he really need this first book? But I was thinking, let's just say we start with the first book. I would tell him, you're going to do math for 60 minutes every day, 45 minutes, 60 minutes every day, depending on what you've got going on that day. Even if he did it for a half an hour, who knows, maybe he could get through just a ton of lessons in a half hour. Go through the lesson, take the time test, pass it, move on to the next lesson. Or I'm thinking that maybe I'll just start with the last 4 books, which starts with basic geometry, and then Algebra 1, and then applications of algebra, and then ends with geometry. So maybe he just gets through this in a year, and this will kind of catch the learning gaps that he had that became an obstacle for him with Algebra 2. This will catch it quickly, and it will solidify his knowledge, and it'll make him quicker, which you need to be quick for the ACT. So stay tuned for my mid-year review to see how it goes. The discount code. Use the code, all caps, HS PLAN, and you will get 10% off of your order at checkout from the Learn Math Fast website, which I will link below. Let me know in the comments if you've tried Learn Math Fast, if you've heard about Learn Math Fast, or if you're now newly intrigued with Learn Math Fast. If you guys want to see what our plan is for all my kids this year for language arts, check out this video right here. And for more of my math videos, this playlist right here. Until next time, bye.